Hey there friends, what's up? Kevin here from the MSOCD Rocks YouTube channel, and today I get to do the review I have been waiting for since I started this channel.
I haven't been this excited since I met Cool Hand Luke.
This is our album review of Nowhere Generation by Rise Against. Before we get started though, please follow MSOTD Rocks if you haven't on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel for all the different YouTube videos, all the other content, our social media. It connects you with us, different Song of the Day features, different live streams, different IGTV videos, and also make sure you're following the Chord Progression podcast as well. Here on YouTube, you can listen on Spotify, podcasts, or iHeart. We interview many different bands on there that are upcoming, emerging, some of the heavy hitters in the scene as well, and you get to know them in ways you never imagined. So all the links in the description below, so please follow MSOTD Rocks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel for the Chord Progression podcast, and you can also subscribe to the audio versions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeart. Now let's go. So before we get started, the previous album, Wolves, came out back in 2017, and it was received rather positively. The band could have gone after the presidential election of 2016 with Donald Trump, but they decided not to focus on more and other socio-economic problems that were happening in the world at that time, because going after Trump would have been way too easy. We got some great songs like The Violence, we got some heavy songs like Welcome to the Breakdown, and you got some awesome just deep tracks like Far From Perfect, More in America, especially with Tim's vocals on that one, and their most underrated track of all time being Miracle. When I took a look at it, I absolutely love the album. I love the direction following the black market, and it became my second favorite album from the band, only behind the absolute behemoth that is The Sufferer and the Witness. The band also came out with the Ghost Note Symphonies album back in 2018. It was an acoustic reimagining of some of their songs off of albums like Appeal to Reason, Endgame, Wolves, and some others as well. And I absolutely love the move on this. When it comes to reimagining, this is the gold standard because they took their songs, put more of these acoustics, more of these strings, these violins, more of this orchestral feel behind it, and they changed them to be more hauntingly beautiful, but the messages remain the same. They just hit you in a much different way. When I thought about reimagining albums, this is the gold standard right here. Now it's time to jump into Nowhere Generation, and again, Rise Against is going to stay at the forefront of the socio-political economic standpoint on this, more of the social side of things. With the Nowhere Generation, taking a look at the band's younger fans, including myself, probably between the ages of 30, maybe 18 and 30. And the main reason because this generation is seen as kind of this lost generation where the American dream is no longer even a dream. It's just this farce, false sham of a thing. Because this is the first generation in America where they are not going to be better off than the previous generation. And it feels like anytime we try something, the goalposts keep getting moved further. Anytime we try and get ahead, things keep seeming like it's going to be harder and harder to get. And no matter what we try, it seems like everything keeps getting pushed further down the line. And it's this plight and this energy that really comes out in this album, according to the message. Before we get started though, if you want to know why I'm such a big Rise Against fan, I made a video on my 26th birthday that describes all of this, and I'll put a link in the description below because I go into great detail about everything, so you can get to know with that. But now let's jump into this review. I'm excited! So when it comes to composition, construction, instrumentation of Nowhere Generation, the band really focused on a couple different things. Sometimes they focus a little bit too much, in my opinion, on the previous two albums to kind of break stuff in here. Otherwise, they really were mixing a lot of other things in here that really did a great job. But they all connected with this more like depressed and kind of drawn back overtone to the songs because, again, taking a look at the theme, the generation that is going, seems like they're going nowhere, that you can't really decide what's going on with them because the goalposts keep moving further and further. And that kind of more depressed, kind of brought back feel really was the key here. So let's take a look at what worked and what didn't. So the first thing that worked is, especially when the band focused on their more punk rock sound, really put more of a heavy hardness and a little more of a fast-paced style to it, because it did create more of these energetic songs that I thought really worked well on this album, but also create this more fever pitch, this more energy, especially because, yes, in the Nowhere Generation, we are going to be loud because we understand what's going on. You're seeing all these different protests happen, and it really worked out here. Take a look at a song like Broken Dreams Incorporated because you see the rapid backing of everything and talking about how the American dream is broken and how it seems like, you know, a falsehood instead of just an actual dream that can be achieved. And the faster pace style really amps up the energy behind it, especially with the quickness of the drums. Then take a look at Monarch, which is probably my favorite track on the whole entire record, because what they did was they took this more modern take, especially on the vocal set, which we'll get to later. But it had this feel of more modern Rise Against mixed with the Suffer and the Witness style. It was heavier, it was faster paced, it was more in your face with the instrumentals, and this just was probably my favorite song of the whole entire record. I felt like if you told me the song was on the Suffer and the Witness as a bonus track, I would have believed you. One thing that really worked was when they did use some more of those like depressed, kind of more slower tones to it to really kind of bring forward, this holding back feel of the whole entire song. And I really did like this because, again, it gave the album the theme that it needed, and it really gave you this whole entire feel of, yeah, things are not going well here. Take a look at the titular song, Nowhere Generation, because it feels like it should be constantly going faster paced. It feels like it's being held back with this great sound behind a little bit of a lighter Rise Against style sound. But it makes total sense because we're not going to be as better off than our parents were. It's going to be the first time in American history that this happens. We feel like we're being held back, and this song perfectly articulates that. Talking to Ourselves is another one because it does have more of this upbeat, fast-paced kind of feel, especially with the lighter guitars and the drumming, but it does feel like it's being held back at times too, and it does make a lot of sense when you take a look at the theme of the song, given the fact that everyone has an opinion and we're trying to say so many things, but it feels like no one's listening, so it feels like we're talking to ourselves. So again, it feels like we're being brought back, but when you listen to the song, the whole entire feeling of this is being brought out there. And then Forfeit, the acoustic track, especially with the plucking style on the verses on that acoustic guitar, it brings forward this great feel that, we're being kept down at times, but what are we going to do to make sure that we don't give up? And there's plenty of different things that are going to prevent us from not giving up. Might be family, might be friends. For me, when I went through my horrible time, music was that thing, was that catalyst that helped get me out along with family and friends. But music was very important to that point. So hearing the song really kind of articulate that and more of this acoustic Wait For Me meets People Live Here style, my God, I was a big fan of this. But what really didn't work for me on this album was when the songs had this real consistent feel with what we saw in Wolves in the Black Market in terms of overall style. And the reason I say that is because it's not like when they went with the Wolves style that it wasn't that good. I mean, it was really good, but the thing was it prevented these songs from being special, especially what we saw in that middle of the album from Nowhere Generation and Monarch, and then especially with how it's being put out there, or wherever Forfeit is. I don't know, I can't remember which one. On my iTunes account, it's definitely Forfeit than Monarch, but on my vinyl, it's Monarch than Forfeit. It's kind of weird. Take a couple examples. Take a look at Middle of a Dream. And I love the vocals on this one, which I will get to, but with the overall style of the instrumentals, it's just consistent throughout the whole entire thing. There's really nothing special that's happening here. It's kind of bland in a way where I'm just like, this is kind of not what I was expecting from Rise Against. Then take a look at Sounds Like as well, because the pre-chorus verse build is really great to drive the energy with the consistent fast-paced verse up front. But then the chorus goes like more similar to like the About Damn Time extra off the Black Market, and it just really brings the overall energy down. The flow is just not there from what they were building up to. It just really doesn't come out strong, and I was just like, man, that really wasn't the best start for me. But overall, when it comes to composition, construction, instrumentation on Nowhere Generation, I really thought they did a great job with this one, especially in that middle chunk of the album, because the tracks were a lot more dynamic, but every single track had this more depressed kind of feel back overtone to it, which really fit in well with the overall theme. If you're looking for the best tracks in this one, if you want that faster, harder pace, Monarch and Broken Dreams Incorporated are the ways to go. Again, you're going to want to take a look at Forfeit for the acoustic stuff, but if you're looking for some other great tracks, Nowhere Generation, Talking to Ourselves are the way to go. Now it's time to go to the vocal section of this album, and when I look at it, of course, Tim McGrath is one of my favorite vocalists when it comes to rock metal, and it's because his voice is not polished whatsoever. It does have this rougher, grittier, gruffier overtone to it, and I really like what this does because especially in the punk rock sense with his political, poetic style, it does have more of this grounded feel when he's talking about different socioeconomic, social, economic, political problems that we are facing, even environmental ones as well. So did Tim's vocals do this once again on Nowhere Generation? The answer is
Yep.
I mean, if you need to take a look at this, take a look at Broken Dreams Incorporated, because I talked about how the faster paced feel felt like we're constantly trying to strive for that American dream, but Tim's vocals, especially in the chorus, he goes so much more melodic over that rapid style. We're getting this massive contrast that doesn't seem like it should work, but honestly, Tim McGrath and Rise Against are the masters of this, and this works out perfectly because you get the feel that we're constantly striving for that American dream with the instrumentals, but the vocals, especially with how melodic they are, it lets you kind of sink into and realize that they're kind of always broken, these broken promises from the future, and it just really sits in with you. It's just like, gimme! But no. Now I'm talking about Middle of a Dream as well, because This is one where the instrumentals really didn't take care of this, but the vocals are the thing that keep this song together and are really the main point here. The verses take more of this rapid tone, kind of on par with what the guitars are doing to create more of this fever-pitched sound and the roughness from Tim's vocals on the outset of this. And I actually really like this because it adds more of the anxiety-driven part of the song right here. It does a great job of making you wonder, am I doing enough? Am I not doing enough? Am I doing something right? Am I doing something wrong? The fever pitch behind it really creates this great overall feel. Then in the bridge, following the chorus, my God, the vocals are rather prominent and more melodic in the same sense, but Tim amping up the energy in the bridge just fuels this song fully. And again, I really like how this is done because his vocals do a great job to add that anxiety-driven feel behind the song, but the instrumentals are a little bit too safe on that front. But if you focus on the vocals when it comes to Middle of a Dream, you are set. Not to go to Monarch, and in the chorus of Monarch, this is probably my favorite vocal part from Tim on this whole entire album, because in the chorus, he plays this louder sound with this higher pitched feel to show off more of this proving feel that we are not the same person that we were before, especially when you listen to the chorus on this song. But the slight grittiness of the vocals makes the perfect inclusion to put emphasis on the just word fucking at the end. It just creates this overall great emphasis again that really ties us in the whole entire Suffering the Witness moniker. The one spot I really didn't care for Tim's vocals on is on the first track on the album, which is The Numbers. And the reason I didn't like this one especially is because the way that it was funneled. When you listen to the verses, you get this more faster paced kind of style from Tim that's very consistent with what he has done in the past, with a little more of a raspiness to it. And I really like it because it does build up this overall feel. It does have that call to action feel. But then you listen to the vocals with the more melodic, a little bit grittier, but more elongated sound. This is where that realization point comes in on the theme of the album and the theme of the song, where there are so many people that are seen as elites that there aren't that many of them, but there's more of us. So the realization I thought should have come first, and then that call to action should have come second. It's just with the vocals, it really flip-flopped here. So I wasn't the biggest fan of that. But overall though, again, Tim McIlrath is just very good when it comes to his vocal set, his vocal range, and when it comes to bringing out that grittiness, gruffiness, and roughness to bring forward more of a ground approach to the themes he's bringing out in his punk rock with Rise Against, along with the different kind of themes that he's working with. And it really did work out here, from Forfeit, from the more acoustic song, from Nowhere Generation, from Middle of a Dream with the way that it really built up in that anxiety, from Monarch with its full-on Suffering the Witness feel, from Broken Dreams Incorporated with the more melodic against the heavy backing and fast-paced backing of the instrumental. A lot of this worked out really well. Of course, wasn't perfect, but was it near perfect?
Yep.
So time to go to the themes and the styles of Nowhere Generation. And of course, the theme is taking a look at this generation of people, younger fans of Rise Against, including myself, probably some late millennials, early Gen Zers, to the point where they feel like they're stuck in a society and everything they do to try and go forward in life and get better, get back to that point where the American dream is a thing, is no longer there. The album does talk about the different broken promises of the American dream to, again, the point where we're going to be the first generation. We're not better off than our previous generation in American history. Broken Dreams Incorporated, of course, the titular song Nowhere Generation really talks about this. The band also goes on to different things where this generation, there's a lot of people in there, and we do have the numbers to make that kind of a change, take it away from the elites, from these thought leaders and these politicians. Song like The Numbers and Sooner or Later really bring this out as well. And of course, they talk about different socioeconomic, political things as well. Taking a look at Sun Urge, where it talks about the different protests that we saw in 2020 with the George Floyd protest. And of course, talking to ourselves, we're talking about the different disparities in different political things where people are always yelling at each other. But did they work out in this album in terms of the styles of the songs? And you know, the answer is absolutely they did. Why would you be thinking anything else? Especially with that whole entire album really having this more depressed, downtrodden, pulled back moniker to the Rise Against style of punk rock. It makes total sense because it feels like the American dream is always an illusion, that it's always going to be shattered, always different broken promises, and we're really feeling that throughout the whole entire album. Whether it's on some of the slower songs like Forfeit, whether it's on something like Monarch with a more fast-paced Suffering the Witness feel, whether it's on something like Nowhere Generation that always feels like it should be faster, more amped up than it is, but always keeps being pulled back. Whether it's something like Sooner or Later where it does have this more depressed feel to start and more of this punky vibe, especially in the chorus. It really brings a lot more forward to the table, but you do feel like that goal is just always out of reach. And that's the theme of the album. And it has this whole entire consistent tone throughout the whole entire thing. If that doesn't absolutely smack on that, honestly, I don't know what does. All right, now time for my rating on Nowhere Generation by Rise Against, and it is... I'm gonna give Nowhere Generation an 8 out of 10. So what I like about this album, and even with that more consistent, more depressed, pulled back tone of the overall, when they mix it with some of these harder influences from their previous work, I thought those songs were the absolute best, because we brought out this more anger, this more upfront, feels more in-your-face throwdown that we saw in their previous albums to really put more of these social economic problems that we're seeing with the Nowhere Generation up front. Again, Broken Dreams incorporated with the rapid, heavy pacing from the instrumentals, and then with the vocals really contrasting against it with the more melodic sound, really brings forth the whole overall feel of the American dream is broken, the promises are broken, and we're constantly striving to fix it, but we're always way out of reach. Take a look at Monarch as well, and again, this is my favorite song on the record because they bring forth that more depressed, brought back tone, but it feels like the song should be on Suffer and the Witness, and you guys know I love Suffer and the Witness, so anytime I hear something like that, I'm like, this is what I wanted from Rise Against. And then, of course, take a look at the break on Sounds Like, because this might be my thing that threw me off the most. I'm like, oh my lord, I made me fall out of my chair for this one, because they go heavy as all hell in more of their older stuff by bringing more of this rapid guitar work that does go heavy with the drum behind it. And it stays more melodic to kind of let that stand out. But they're able to kind of close out more with the slower sound, so it really comes forward right at your face and then pulls you back, a lot like what the album is doing. One other thing I really like about this album is, again, Tim's vocal style, his construction, his patterns, his range on this, because he perfectly used the lyrics, the poetic style that he writes with, to really articulate a lot of things that were happening in this album, especially with the Nowhere Generation. But to put him out there with the raspiness, the greenness, and the roughness to really amplify everything was a great way to go. Again, take a look at Broken Dreams Incorporated, because that melodic style of vocal works so well against the rap and instrumentation that we're getting this completely different feel from the overall song. Again, the rapidness, the American dream, the promise is broken, we gotta go get it. But the melodic kind of thing says, yeah, you're not getting it. Take a look at Forfeit as well, because the chorus, Tim's vocals get all full as hell with more of this. Again, you get a little bit of the higher pitch, but you also get a little more of the grittiness as well in there. And when it comes down to the point where you can't give up and there's going to be so many other things there for you to help you out, family, friends, whatever else might be, I really connect with this as well, because you get that power of you're not alone in this. And of course, Rise Against Music was helping me out in 2017, so this really did feel powerful. And then of course, the Middle of a Dream as well, because Tim's vocals kept up this anxiety-driven fuel where you're not sure if you're doing enough, or if you're thinking about doing too much, or if you're constantly having this thing of like, am I stuck in the middle, where it might be. Those consistent vocals to really bring forth that anxiety feel smacked on this one. And I think, again, the biggest thing I like about this album was the fact that you took a look at this like more overall kind of depressive pulled back feel with that Rise Against sound, and it was consistent throughout the album, kind of like with the Nowhere Generation, where we're constantly striving for something and it's just always out of our reach, it's never there. And Talking to Ourselves is probably the perfect song to really show this overall, along with Nowhere Generation, because it really feels like we should just be getting that, like we deserve it, we should get this, and we are working hard enough to make this happen. But the goalposts keep moving, the finish line keeps moving, the promise keeps getting broken. And that's where that kind of pull back depressed feel comes from. And Talking to Ourselves perfectly show this. So does Nowhere Generation. So what didn't I care for about this album? And there are a couple of things. One is you take a look at the back half of them, especially the last couple of songs with Sounds Like, Rules of Play, and Middle of a Dream. There was a specialness that was missing, especially from the songs that preceded on the whole entire album. And I think the main reason was because their construction and their overall vibe really kind of played more with that Black Market and Wolf style. And don't get me wrong, when you play with the Wolf style, I really do enjoy that. But it really brought away from this, more special feel to the song, where they kind of just felt like they were there, especially after really listening to the last two previous releases. Of course, Rise Against is always ever evolving, but these really kind of just stuck to me like, there's just kind of a lack of connection on these. Of course, with that overall more depressed pullback sound, they did work well on the album, but when you single them out, there's going to be things where you're just like, maybe this one ain't for me. I will give Sounds Like some credit though, because that break, oh lord. And then of course, Middle of a Dream with the vocal construction really to amp up everything that the media's talking about. So they're not complete washes of like, oh, this is bad. No, most of these songs still have a lot of great redeeming qualities to them. The other thing I wasn't the biggest fan of was when you take a listen on the first two songs that are on there and the way that they're put on there, because of course with the numbers, I know we're going to get into the whole entire feel of the album off of this one, but again, with its call of action following the response to that call to action in the way the construction is, it just feels rather kind of not placed properly, a little bit messy at times. Then you take a look at Sudden Urge as well, and again, this song, it just gives me the feel like we're going right back in the black market, we're going right back into Wolves, and that's not what I was wanting, especially on this album, because I do like the sound, especially on Wolves, but it's a new album. I want to hear Rise Against, but I want to hear something they're going to come up with that's going to be maybe a little bit different. But then we get to Nowhere Generation right after that, and then we get to other songs like Talking to Ourselves, Broken Dreams, Forfeit, Monarch, and I'm like, yeah, this is a lot better. This is fun. So now time for my overall final thought on Nowhere Generation by Rise Against. Is this the best Rise Against album of all time? No, that spot is still reserved for Suffer and The Witness. Would I put this album in my top 5 though? Honestly, yeah, it might be like 5 or 4, but then again, you guys know how much I love these albums, how much I love Wolves. I really enjoy Endgame. I also really enjoy Appeal to Reason and Siren Songs, so it's going to be somewhere within those. But this doesn't mean that this is a bad album. It's an 8 out of 10 because Rise Against does something that no other band is able to do. They're able to create this whole entire album of their sound, mix in a couple of different ideas as well from their older and newer stuff, but create this overall feel in every single song that really fits with the theme where all these songs are different, but they have this same feeling that the American dream is a shattered promise, and they're always kind of having this depressed, more pulled back feel, like there should be something more, but there isn't anything there. Again, broken promises really being felt throughout this whole entire album. And you listen to Nowhere Generation, Talking to Ourselves, Broken Dreams Incorporated, Forfeit, Monarch, all in that order, the way they're on the iTunes album at least, but if it's on, your vinyl, Forfeit and Monarch are flipped. Oh my lord, this album just really has it out there. So, was I disappointed in this album? By all means, absolutely not. I am incredibly happy with this album. It will most likely make it in the top 10 best albums of the year, and Monarch might be one of the best songs they've ever written. It might be a top 5er overall. Okay, maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, maybe top 10. There's a lot of great Rise Against songs out there. But this album really hits home for the Nowhere Generation. Being that generation myself, oh yeah, I feel this one. So that's going to be for me, guys. Thank you for watching and listening to this review. I hope you enjoyed it. If anyone from the Rise Against camp watches this, I want to thank you as well. For the Chord Progression Podcast, Tim McElrath is the ultimate goal to get to interview. Favorite artist, frontman, man. If you guys watch this, guys can make this happen, please, for me. My name is Kevin, and you guys know I am with the hat flip. See ya!